Hi guys, welcome back to another video. My name is Tali and today I will be reviewing all the books that I read for the month of April. Another month of reading, discovering new authors, and stories. I read some incredible stories this month. Very hard to go back and actually remember what I read, so I'm gonna try my best. So for this month I read a total of 9 books, a total of 3,303 words, 4 fantasy books, 2 YA novels, and a total of 3 fiction books. I also participated in 2 readathons, the Magical Readathon and Reading Rush, which I had a lot of fun. The first book that I'm going to review is Clockwork Princess by Cassandra Clare. This is the 3rd novel of the Infernal Devices series. It was the perfect finishing touch to the whole series. I feel like it's a book that will be with me forever and a story that I will never forget. I gave this a 5-star rating, of course, because it fit everything in what I expected in a book, especially because the ending to the whole series was very impacting. In this novel, Tessa is engaged to Jem, one of the main characters in the story, but they have to reschedule their wedding because Jem gets injured in a battle with several demons. The beginning of the story takes us back to the year 1847. In the middle of the story, it explains the backstory to the year 1847. I feel like it fits perfectly to the whole story of the Infernal Devices, and it explains why Tessa is who she is, and it explains a little bit of her life before she even found out that she had these powers. This book was written in 3rd-person point of view, and I feel like Cassandra Clare did a very amazing job in developing all the characters and developing the plot as well. I don't feel like it was confusing at all. I feel like the plot was on point, and it right from the beginning it got to the point of what was going to occur in this book. One of my favorite characters, I really enjoyed Tessa because she was very well developed. In the beginning she was very annoying, but then throughout the whole series I feel like she really grew on me. On page 68 there's a quote that I really loved about reading books. So it says something about a feeling when you're reading a book. When you know there's going to be a tragedy, you can feel the cold and darkness coming, but you're tied to the story as if being dragged behind a carriage. And I feel like this is a simile comparing reading a book's tragedy to being dragged behind a carriage. That was very suspenseful. There were many surprising events that occurred, and the author created such an emotional ending, making the reader happy and sad at the same time. So the ending was the best thing ever. Overall, I would really recommend this book if you are looking for a series to read and just a fun read with a lovely love triangle. So 2 other books that I read for the month of April were The Chronicles of Narnia, and I was planning on reading the whole complete series, but that did not happen. From my edition, I read the 2nd book, which is The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and I also read the 3rd book, which is The Horse and His Boy, and these are by C.S. Lewis. I'm pretty sure you guys have heard of The Chronicles of Narnia. The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, it is a fantasy novel. When one of the main characters, Lucy, she's the first one to enter the wardrobe and enter the beautiful world of Narnia. At first, none of her siblings believe her because she's the smallest one, and they think that she's just imagining things, but they soon discover the magic of Narnia and they follow along Lucy. So Narnia is a land of talking animals and mythical creatures who is ruled by the White Witch. It's written in 3rd-person omniscient narrator, focusing mainly on the character Lucy when she enters the world of Narnia, and it also focuses on Edmund, which is Lucy's brother, when he encounters the witch, and he is kind of like an antagonist at that moment because he is trying to lead his siblings to the witch. I feel like the writing is very straightforward. Obviously it's a children's book and it's very easy to read, and it has easy vocabulary for young children, and it includes a lot of descriptions. I feel like the main thing about this book is the allegory of the central idea of Christianity. It gives us the reference to when Christ sacrificed himself to redeem other sins, which is a reference to the book, and I rated it a 4-star rating. At the ending, it was just like very slow paced, and I just wanted to get to the ending. The Horse and His Boy is about protagonist Shasta, who discovers he is not the son of a fisherman, so he escapes to the north which is to the place of Narnia. Their journey to Narnia, he's mistaken for a runaway who looks exactly like the prince, which leads him to discover who he really is and to discover his real father. I feel like this book was really slow in the beginning. It took me a while to really get into the story, but as soon as they introduced Aravis, I feel like the story started picking up. It included a lot more action. I rated it a 4-star rating as well because it wasn't a book that really impacted me. I did enjoy reading it. It was very fun to read and I really enjoyed C.S. Lewis writing. And I hope to finish the rest of the series. Next book that I read for the month was Big Little Lies by Liane Moriarty. It follows 3 women with 3 different life situations, and all of them have their children enrolled in a kindergarten in the same class. I really enjoyed reading this book. I feel like it was very fast-paced. I really liked the writing style because it was based on 3 different points of views, which made the story very intriguing and very fun to read. Each story focuses on 3 main characters, which are Madeline, Jane, and Celeste, and each chapter switches to the view of each different character. Jane, she is a single mother who has a son. Madeline is Celeste's best friend, and she becomes very close to Jane after Jane helps her on the first day of kinder. And Madeline also has to deal with her teenage daughter, which I did start watching the show, and I feel like the daughter was nicer, and then in the book she was a bit bitchier, so that I feel like they were complete different characters in my opinion. Her daughter preferred her stepmother than to her, which was a big problem for her because she wanted her daughter to like her more than her stepmother. Celeste is married to a rich and successful man. Perry is well liked by everyone, but no one knows that she is a victim of domestic violence. I feel like the plot of the story was introduced right away, which is a murder. The author doesn't really tell us exactly who got murdered, which made it really suspenseful. It also includes like people being investigated during the book and just telling the whole life story of what occurred before the murder, which I really enjoyed, and it made it more suspenseful. The stories are real life situations that have occurred in real life, which made the characters very real, and I really enjoyed reading from. I really enjoyed the story. It was very entertaining and very funny. Madeline was one of my favorite characters because she was very caring to her friends, and she stood up for herself and her friends and her family. She could get annoying at first because she didn't want to establish that relationship with her ex-husband's wife, and she always bitched about it. Sorry about my language. The conclusion was very surprising and not expected at all, because there could have been any of the characters that would have gotten murdered. But once you get to know who is the person that got murdered, you're like, what the heck? Therefore, I rated this a 5 out of 5. It was a very good read, and I really recommend you guys if you're looking for a mystery, but at the same time, a funny and fast-paced reading. Okay. Alright, the next book that I read was Forbidden by Tabitha Suzuma. This is a YA novel. Once I finished reading the story, I had a huge hole in my stomach because of how depressing it was. It is just not any romance, it is an incest romance, which could be very difficult to read and very uncomfortable. And obviously, it's very weird to read because who falls in love with their sibling? I was not only disgusted, but I was also destroyed in every possible way. And I gave it a 4-star rating. Forbidden is about Loken and Maya, who are siblings who have always felt more than friends. Together they take care of their younger siblings and do practically what any adult has to do around the house. While they do this at their house, they have to handle their schoolwork, which I really enjoyed because they seemed very hardworking and very motivated to take care of their family and handle their schoolwork. The way that they understood each other completely brought them way closer to each other, and so close that they fell in love. They know that their love is wrong and that it cannot continue, but they can't stop what feels right to them. The story overall was very fast-paced, so each chapter takes turns between Loken and Maya in the first person point of view. It lets readers really understand their thoughts and their feelings. There was a lot of like topics in this book with like alcoholism, parent abandonment, and social anxiety, which are real life situations. And I feel like these 2 kids really struggled with their life, and that's what made it really sad because They needed just an adult. They needed support and motivation. Through the middle, it got kind of boring and repetitive because it just repeated the same things over and over again, and it made me just get to the ending of the story. I did not stop reading it because I just wanted to see how it ended, and I'm gonna say that Loken deserved way better. Another book that I read was The Green Mile by Stephen King. This was my favorite book for the month. This is a fiction fantasy thriller, and it talks about the Cold Mountain Penitentiary. It's home to convinced killers who are waiting to walk through the Green Mile so they can sit on the electric chair. From all the Stephen King books that I have read, I feel like this one impacted me the most for many reasons. Rated it a 5 out of 5. The story is told in first-person point of view by Paul Edgecombe. From a nursing home years later after everything occurred, he is writing a story about the Green Mile. He's remembering when John Coffey, who is accused of the murders of 2 little girls, and he is said to have a body of a giant and a mind of a child. And when I was reading it, I feel like he didn't seem like a guy who would have murdered 2 little girls. So when Paul and the rest of the guards get to know John a lot more, they discover that he's completely different and that he turns out to be a very special guy. The story was very enjoyable. He did such an incredible job at writing this book, especially with the point of view of Paul Edgecombe. He brought the characters to life, and it allowed the readers to pretend that they're in the book and actually with the inmates in the prison. Not that we would like that to happen. Mr. Jingles is very important in the story. He is a mouse that just appears out of nowhere, and he befriends an inmate called Delacrux. I don't know how to pronounce his name. There was a lot of symbolism in the book and a lot of references to the Bible, but it had a perfect ending. It was very sad, but at the same time it leaves you calm and relaxed, and it just gives you a peaceful feeling. But at the same time, it does leave you thinking about all those innocent people that have been convicted of crimes that they did not commit. Next book that I read was Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo, and I love the cover for this. They do reference something in the book to the cover. I read this in 10 hours. It was very fast-paced. The writing style was amazing. Leigh Bardugo's writing style is always amazing. It's a YA fantasy novel with 2 more books, so it is a trilogy, following Sage and Storm and Ruin and Rising. The story follows Alina, who is a soldier, and she's on her way to the Shadowfold. The Shadowfold is a dark place with monsters, and she has a feeling that she is not going to survive. But little did she know, she unleashes magic she did not know she had, and because of this magic, she is taken to the Grisha world. She trains with the Grisha, and she falls under the spell of the Darkling. The Darkling is like 100 years old. He believes that with Alina's power, she is able to destroy the Shadowfold. But the next book that I read was Looking for Alaska by John Green. I recently watched the TV adaptation for Looking for Alaska, and it was really good. I feel like the film and the book were very similar. It just left out some stuff, but not a lot, and I really enjoyed the book. So Looking for Alaska is about Pudge. He moves to the Boulder Creek boarding school so he can find his greater perhaps. He meets Alaska Young, Chip, and she pulls Pudge into her world and launches him into the greater perhaps. He eventually falls for her. Themes about death in here. It talks a lot about death. It has a lot of like references to poets because Pudge likes saying people's last words before they die. And it references Gabriel Garcia Marquez's book called The General and His Labyrinth. And my favorite part was when Alaska told Pudge about what her name meant, and I think that was so beautiful because it gives us a little background about Alaska, because we didn't know really a lot about her family. And throughout the book we find out that Alaska's mom died and she has been blaming herself for her death. So that's basically what's wrong with Alaska. She's hurting and she's just going through depression, and she drinks a lot and doesn't really care about anything. And another character is Chip. He comes from a low-income family and I love his relationship with his mother. Once you finish the story, it just made you think about life in general. There was a lot of like pranks and there were a lot of bullies in this book, a lot of alcohol and cigarettes, a lot of smoking. I really enjoyed it and I rated it a 4 out of 5. Towards the end, it did make me cry, so if you plan on reading this book, be prepared with some tissues because you're going to definitely cry. The last book that I read, I was in a reading slump, but I feel like this book was a perfect book to end the month. It is Sharp Objects by Gillian Flynn. After reading his story, I feel like I want to read more. Literally drank a full glass of wine after finishing the story because of how shocking the ending was and the whole book was. This is the same author of Gone Girl. It's about Camille, who is a reporter. She recently got out of a mental hospital because of self-harm. Back in her hometown, 2 little girls are murdered and her boss wants her to go back to her hometown as her first assignment to cover the murders. Camille has to confront what happened to her years ago. So the story is written in first-person point of view from the perspective of our main character, Camille. I feel like this allowed us to understand where Camille was coming from and to truly understand her past. It allowed us to understand why the book is called Sharp Objects, and it's a really important and very intriguing topic to read about, and it is a book that made me keep turning the pages. It is a story about murder, but it is also about a bunch of other things. I feel like our main character, she went through a lot of stuff and I really felt for her. Like, she was a character that didn't really develop from the beginning to the end of the story. I feel like her mom and her stepsister were freaking scary. The author always kept me guessing. I was always wrong. At the end of the story, I couldn't believe the plot twist. I couldn't believe that Gillian Flynn really made us think something, but it ended up being something else. So I really enjoyed this story and it was the perfect thriller to end my month. So I rated this a 5 out of 5 and I am really excited to read more of Gillian Flynn. Those are all the books that I read for the month of April. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure to like and subscribe. See you guys next time. Bye!